Have you ever wondered if you're truly living wisely or just surviving with a polished mask on? What if being foolish had nothing to do with your IQ, but everything to do with how you live when no one's watching? And here's the twist. What holds you back the most in life might not be what you don't know, but what you refuse to see. Let's pause for a moment. Forget degrees, titles, or how clever you sound in a conversation. Wisdom, true, lasting wisdom, isn't about how much you know. It's about how you choose to live, especially when life doesn't go your way. It's about how you treat people when there's nothing to gain. And most importantly, it's about the silent choices you make when no one else is looking. Stoic philosophy, rooted in ancient truth, what's surprisingly relevant today, reminds us that the wisest people aren't always the loudest or the most admired. They're the ones who live with purpose, clarity, and integrity. But let's flip the script. What about foolishness? The Stoics were clear. Foolishness isn't stupidity. It's not a lack of intelligence or book smarts. It's the unwillingness to live in alignment with your values. It's choosing comfort over courage, ego over honesty, and excuses over responsibility. It's living on autopilot, letting fear or pride steer your life without even realizing it. And here's the uncomfortable part. We've all been there. At some point, we've all ignored our intuition, reacted without thinking, or settled for what's easy instead of what's right. That doesn't make you bad. It makes you human. This isn't a video about judging or labeling. This is an invitation, an honest, maybe slightly uncomfortable, but deeply empowering invitation to look inward, to challenge your habits, to spot the blind spots you've been avoiding for years. Because growth doesn't start with advice. It starts with awareness. And maybe, just maybe, the biggest transformation begins not when you learn something new, but when you finally see what's always been there. So if you're ready to go deeper, not into someone else's opinions, but into your own truth, this journey is for you. Let's walk through it together. What you'll discover about yourself might just surprise you. Let me ask you something that might sting a little. Have we become so obsessed with how we look that we've forgotten who we are? In a world where filters are the new reality and validation is just a double tap away, it's easy, too easy, to believe that appearance is everything. And to be fair, who doesn't enjoy feeling beautiful? Who doesn't like a polished look, a confident walk, a stunning photo that turns heads? There's nothing wrong with caring for how you present yourself. But here's where the danger begins. When appearance becomes your entire identity, when your worth feels tied to the mirror, and your confidence depends on compliments, likes, or whether your outfit matches the latest trend. That's not empowerment. That's enslavement. And the Stoics would call it exactly what it is: foolishness. You see, Stoic wisdom teaches us that real value lies in your inner world, your discipline, your choices, your integrity. Marcus Aurelius, a Roman emperor and philosopher, once said, "The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts." That means who you are isn't shaped by your wardrobe, but by your mindset. True beauty doesn't fade with time because it was never skin deep to begin with. It was character deep. It shows up in how you treat people, in how you handle pressure, in whether you stand up for what's right when no one is applauding. Let me be clear. Taking care of your appearance isn't the issue. The issue is when you pour all your energy into curating your image, but leave your character malnourished. It's like polishing a shield while ignoring the warrior behind it. And the result? An inner life that's empty, a confidence that's fragile, a constant hunger for approval that never really satisfies. Because external beauty is fleeting. The glow of youth fades. The admiration from strangers can turn to silence overnight. And when that happens, what's left of you? If you've built your identity on what can disappear, you'll disappear with it. But if you build your identity on what lasts, your values, your kindness, your resilience, you'll be unshakable. Think of the women you truly admire, not just the ones you scroll past on Instagram, but the ones who've changed your life. What made them unforgettable? Was it their makeup or their mentorship? Was it their outfit or their courage? That's the kind of beauty the Stoics believed in. So the next time you catch yourself obsessing over your looks, comparing your body to someone else's highlight reel, or chasing likes on your newest selfie, pause, breathe, and ask a deeper question. Who am I becoming? Because the truth is, the world doesn't need more perfectly posed pictures. It needs more people with depth. It needs more women who radiate strength, not just style, who choose wisdom over image, who understand that their presence is more powerful than any filter could ever be. In the end, you won't be remembered for the shape of your eyeliner or the label on your dress. You'll be remembered for how you made others feel, for the principles you stood for, and for the woman you chose to become when no one was watching. That's beauty that never fades. That's the kind of woman the world desperately needs more of. Are you becoming her? Let me ask you something simple, but powerful. When something goes wrong in your life, what's your first instinct? Do you pause to reflect on your role in it? Or do you start pointing fingers? If only my parents had raised me differently. If only my boss weren't so toxic. If only life would just give me a break. Sound familiar? We've all said these things, and to be honest, they can feel true. But here's the catch. The moment we give blame a seat at the table, we also hand it the steering wheel of our life. And that's a price far too high to pay. According to Stoic wisdom, your life, every joy, every setback, every chapter is your responsibility. Not because life is always fair, it's not, but because responsibility is where your power begins. Let's break that down. A foolish mindset lives in blame. It waits for circumstances to change, for someone to fix it, for life to finally deliver that perfect moment. But in waiting, nothing grows, nothing heals, nothing transforms. Why? Because if your happiness depends on other people changing, you've already lost control of your future. Think of it this way. If you're standing in a storm, you can't stop the rain. But you can choose whether to run for cover, to dance in it, or to let it drench your spirit. That choice, that moment of ownership, is where wisdom lives. Let me share a story. I once knew a woman who was stuck in a job she hated. Her boss was awful, the pay was low, the recognition non-existent, and every day she complained, loudly, to friends, to family, even to strangers. But when asked what she was doing to change it, silence. No new skills, no job search, no internal shift. She wasn't trapped by her job. She was trapped by her mindset. And that's the heart of this. Taking responsibility isn't about blaming yourself. It's about reclaiming your power. It's saying, yes, this is hard. Yes, this hurts. But what can I do right now to move forward? Here's what the Stoics believed. We cannot control what happens to us, but we can always control how we respond. That response, that's where your freedom lives. That's how you go from being a victim of your life to the author of your life. And let's be honest, this isn't easy. It takes humility to say, maybe I'm part of the problem. It takes courage to change what's within your control and let go of the rest. But the reward? Oh, it's everything. Because when you stop waiting for someone to save you, you finally discover what you're capable of. The wise woman doesn't need perfect conditions to thrive. She creates growth out of discomfort. She doesn't run from her mistakes. She learns from them. She doesn't play small to avoid blame. She plays bold because she knows her power is hers alone. So the next time you find yourself falling into blame, pause, breathe, and ask yourself, what part did I play in this? And what can I choose differently today? You'll be amazed how those small questions can shift everything. In the end, life isn't about what happens to you. It's about who you become in response. And when you stop giving your power away, you stop waiting for life to happen and start becoming the kind of woman who makes life happen. Let me ask you something real. Have you ever stopped yourself from doing what felt right just because you were worried what someone might think? Maybe you held back a truth. Maybe you dimmed your light. Maybe you wore a mask so others would be more comfortable. Sound familiar? You're not alone. We live in a world that teaches us early on to seek approval. Gold stars in school, likes on Instagram, praise at work, and over time, we start believing that our worth depends on how well we're received. But here's the truth no one says out loud. Building your identity on other people's opinions is like building a house on sand. It doesn't matter how pretty it looks, it won't last. The Stoics were blunt about this. They said that when you rely on external validation, you surrender your inner freedom. You become a leaf in the wind, constantly shifting with every judgment, every comment, every stare. And the danger is subtle. It doesn't happen all at once. It happens slowly. One small compromise here, one self-betrayal there, until one day you realize you don't even recognize yourself anymore. You've become a collection of expectations instead of a reflection of your truth. Here's the thing. Caring about others isn't the problem. We're social beings. Feedback matters. Connection matters. But there's a huge difference between being open to others and being owned by their opinions. The wise woman understands this line. She listens, sure, but she filters what's true from what's just noise. She doesn't let fear of judgment stop her from living with integrity, because she knows that trying to please everyone is not just exhausting, it's impossible. You'll never be thin enough, smart enough, bold enough, quiet enough for everyone. And the more you chase their approval, the more you lose your own. Let me tell you a quick story. A friend of mine once wanted to start a podcast. She had ideas, passion, purpose, but she hesitated. Why? What if they think I'm not qualified? What if no one listens? What if people laugh? And guess what? While she waited for permission, someone else with less talent and more courage launched their show and thrived. The only thing standing between her and her dream wasn't the world. It was the fear of what the world might say. That's the silent trap. That's what steals more dreams than failure ever could. So what can you do? Start with this simple but powerful question. If no one else knew about this choice, would I still make it? If the answer is yes, you're probably moving from truth, not fear. And every time you make a decision aligned with your values, instead of someone else's expectations. You strengthen your foundation. You build your house on rock, not sand. And that's when you become truly unshakable. The truth is, some people will misunderstand you. Some will judge you, dismiss you, envy you. That's life. But don't shrink to fit their comfort. Don't trade your authenticity for their approval. You weren't born to be everyone's favorite. You were born to be real. And the world doesn't need more copies. It needs your truth. Loud, soft, messy, bold. However it shows up. So the next time you find yourself about to filter your voice, hesitate your dream, or shrink your spirit, pause, breathe, and ask, who am I living for? Because at the end of the day, your worth isn't a popularity contest. It's a quiet confidence that says, I know who I am, even if you don't. That's the kind of woman who leaves a mark. That's the kind of wisdom the world needs now more than ever. The Stoics were blunt about this. They said that when you rely on external validation, you surrender your inner freedom. You become a leaf in the wind, constantly shifting with every judgment, every comment, every stare. And the danger is subtle. It doesn't happen all at once. It happens slowly. One small compromise here, one self-betrayal there, until one day you realize you don't even recognize yourself anymore. You've become a collection of expectations instead of a reflection of your truth. Here's the thing. Caring about others isn't the problem. We're social beings. Feedback matters. Connection matters. But there's a huge difference between being open to others and being owned by their opinions. The wise woman understands this line. She listens, sure, but she filters what's true from what's just noise. She doesn't let fear of judgment stop her from living with integrity, because she knows that trying to please everyone is not just exhausting, it's impossible. You'll never be thin enough, smart enough, bold enough, quiet enough for everyone. And the more you chase their approval, the more you lose your own. Let me tell you a quick story. A friend of mine once wanted to start a podcast. She had ideas, passion, purpose, but she hesitated. Why? What if they think I'm not qualified? What if no one listens? What if people laugh? And guess what? While she waited for permission, someone else with less talent and more courage launched their show and thrived. The only thing standing between her and her dream wasn't the world. It was the fear of what the world might say. That's the silent trap. That's what steals more dreams than failure ever could. So what can you do? Start with this simple but powerful question. If no one else knew about this choice, would I still make it? If the answer is yes, you're probably moving from truth, not fear. And every time you make a decision aligned with your values instead of someone else's expectations, you strengthen your foundation. You build your house on rock, not sand. And that's when you become truly unshakable. The truth is, some people will misunderstand you. Some will judge you, dismiss you, envy you. That's life, but don't shrink to fit their comfort. Don't trade your authenticity for their approval. You weren't born to be everyone's favorite. You were born to be real. And the world doesn't need more copies. It needs your truth. Loud, soft, messy, bold, however it shows up. So the next time you find yourself about to filter your voice, hesitate your dream, or shrink your spirit, pause, breathe, and ask, who am I living for? Because at the end of the day, Your worth isn't a popularity contest. It's a quiet confidence that says, I know who I am, even if you don't. That's the kind of woman who leaves a mark. That's the kind of wisdom the world needs now more than ever. Let me ask you something that might hit close to home. Have you ever let one bad moment ruin your entire day? Maybe someone cut you off in traffic. Maybe a friend said something hurtful. Maybe your plans didn't go as expected, and suddenly, your emotions took the wheel, and everything spiraled. If you've been there, you're not alone. We've all experienced those days where a single spark turns into a firestorm. But here's the thing. Your feelings are real, yes, but when your emotions begin to control you instead of you controlling them, you're no longer free. And according to Stoic wisdom, that loss of emotional control is one of the clearest signs of foolishness. Not because emotions are bad, but because unchecked emotions rob you of your power. The Stoics never said you shouldn't feel. They weren't advocating for emotional numbness. In fact, they believed that emotions are a natural part of being human. Anger, sadness, fear, joy, they all have a place, but what they warned us about is this. When you let emotions dictate your behavior, your decisions, your relationships, you become a slave to whatever the world throws at you. And let's be real, the world throws a lot. Life is messy. People will disappoint you. Things will fall apart. If your peace depends on everything going your way, you're going to live in a constant state of turmoil. Think about it. We've all seen someone who reacts to every inconvenience with an explosion, shouting in traffic, slamming doors during disagreements, blaming others for every little discomfort. Maybe at some point, that person was us. But here's the problem. When we explode emotionally, we often say things we can't take back, make choices we later regret, and create tension in the very relationships we care about. And worse, we justify it with things like, they made me feel this way, or I couldn't help it. But the Stoics would challenge that thinking. They'd say, no one can make you feel anything. You choose how to respond. And that's where your power lies, in the pause. In that sacred space between trigger and reaction. It's the split second where you get to choose. Will I react with impulse or respond with wisdom? That pause is everything. It's not weakness, it's strength. It's emotional maturity. It's leadership. It's the foundation of inner peace in a chaotic world. And I know it's not easy, especially when you feel hurt, insulted, or overlooked. But the most powerful people in any room aren't the ones yelling the loudest. They're the ones who can stay calm when everyone else loses it. That kind of presence commands true respect. So what can you do to build emotional control? Start by noticing your triggers. When you feel a wave of emotion rising, stop. Don't speak. Don't act. Just breathe. Observe. Then ask yourself, is this reaction serving me? Is it making anything better or just louder? More often than not, you'll realize the situation isn't nearly as dramatic as your emotions made it feel. And even if it is serious, responding with clarity gives you the best chance to handle it well. Another game-changing shift is to focus only on what you can control. You can't change what others say or do. You can't control the weather, the traffic, or someone's bad mood. But you can always control you. That's the core of Stoic living. Not perfection, but presence. Not silence, but self-command. And every time you catch yourself before you lash out, every time you respond instead of react, you're becoming emotionally wiser. So the next time life pushes your buttons, don't ask, "How should I explode?" Ask, "How can I stay grounded?" Because the strongest woman in the room isn't the one who intimidates others, it's the one who's fully in charge of herself. And in a world that praises drama and chaos, being emotionally steady is one of the most powerful forms of rebellion. Let's talk about success for a moment. Not the Instagram kind. Not the six-figure salary, designer handbag, shiny car kind. I'm talking about real success. The kind you feel when the noise fades, when the audience disappears, and it's just you, with yourself. Now imagine a woman who seems to have it all. She walks into a room and turns heads. Her career looks flawless. Her style is impeccable, and her social media screams luxury and ambition. But beneath that curated image, there's something missing, not in her bank account, but in her spirit. Because despite all the external wins, she feels empty, restless, and always chasing the next thing. That's the trap of materialism. And the Stoics, those ancient thinkers who saw through human nature with laser clarity, warned us, the more we seek fulfillment through things, the more we lose sight of who we are. Stoic wisdom reminds us that true wealth isn't measured by what you own, it's measured by what you can live without. Not because poverty is noble, but because contentment is powerful. When your happiness depends on a bigger house, a fancier title, or the next luxurious purchase, you've handed your peace over to things that can be taken away. And let's be honest, this obsession isn't always loud. It can show up quietly, masked as ambition. You might tell yourself, once I hit that next promotion, so I'll finally feel enough. Once I reach that goal weight, then I'll be proud. Once I get just a little more, then I'll rest. But the finish line keeps moving. The applause fades faster than you think. And what you're left with is the exhausting chase for more. So, what do the Stoics suggest instead? They practiced intentional simplicity, not out of self-denial, but out of strength. They would skip certain comforts on purpose, not to suffer, but to remind themselves that their happiness didn't depend on luxury. It was a training of the soul, a reminder that their value came from within. Now, I'm not saying you need to throw away your goals or give up your lifestyle. This isn't about guilt. It's about awareness. Why are you chasing what you're chasing? Is it out of joy or fear? Is it truly aligned with your values, or just trying to fill a void? Here's a question to sit with. If everything I had was taken away, my home, my job, my status, what would still remain of me? Your answer to that tells you what you've really built your life upon. Because the woman who ties her identity to possessions will always live in fear of losing them. But the woman who builds herself on character, wisdom, purpose, that woman is free, no matter what she owns. So the next time you feel the pressure to buy something you don't need, impress someone you don't even like, or prove your worth through achievement, pause. Ask yourself, is this adding meaning to my life? Or is it just decorating a version of me I don't even recognize? Because the richest life isn't filled with things. It's filled with peace, purpose, and presence. And that, my friend, is the kind of wealth no one can ever take from you. Let's be honest. Self-reflection isn't sexy. It's not glamorous. It doesn't get likes. No one's posting selfies of themselves journaling about their mistakes, or quietly sitting with the truth of their own choices. But if we're really going to talk about wisdom, this is where it begins. One of the most subtle but dangerous signs of foolishness is this: living without ever pausing to ask, am I becoming the person I want to be? And the truth is, many of us are moving fast, but not really moving forward. We're stuck in routines, habits, stories we tell ourselves. We repeat the same mistakes, attract the same kind of chaos, and then wonder, why does this keep happening to me? The answer, we're not growing because we're not looking. The Stoics were clear about this. Reflection isn't about guilt. It's not about beating yourself up. It's about alignment. Real, honest self-examination is a courageous act. It means choosing discomfort over denial. It means sitting in the silence long enough to ask hard questions, like, did I act from fear today or from strength? Where did I let ego get in the way? What can I do better tomorrow? That's the inner work that separates a reactive life from a meaningful one. But here's why it's hard. Because self-reflection strips away the excuses. It forces us to own our part, to admit that maybe we weren't entirely right, or that our habits aren't helping us, or that our wounds have been running the show longer than we'd like to admit. And facing that, without judgment, just truth, isn't easy, but it is transformative. Because the more honest you become with yourself, the freer you become from everything that's been holding you back. I've seen it time and time again. People say they want change, but they're not willing to look in the mirror long enough to see what needs to change. They avoid feedback, deflect responsibility, stay too busy to ever be still. But growth doesn't come from running. It comes from looking deeply, intentionally, and sometimes the most powerful breakthrough doesn't come from reading another book or hearing another podcast. It comes the moment you stop, breathe, and ask yourself, what truth have I been avoiding? So if you've been drifting, if you feel stuck in cycles, if you're tired of surface-level living, start here. You don't need a weekend retreat or a life coach. You just need the courage to ask, what did I learn today? What would my wiser self have done differently? And don't wait for the perfect moment. Do it tonight. Do it right now. Because reflection isn't about perfection, it's about progress. And every time you pause and choose awareness over autopilot, you take one more step toward becoming the strongest, wisest version of yourself. Let's be real. Most people don't listen to understand. They listen to reply. And sometimes, not even that. Sometimes, they're just waiting for their turn to talk. You've probably met someone like this. Maybe you've even been that person. The one who jumps into every conversation with their own story, who finishes other people's sentences, who always has advice, even when no one asked. It's easy to mistake that kind of presence for confidence, but more often than not, it's just noise. And according to Stoic philosophy, silence, thoughtful, intentional silence, is one of the clearest signs of true wisdom. You see, when we talk more than we listen, we stop learning. We get stuck inside our own opinions, our own assumptions, our own ego. We create an echo chamber where the only voice that matters is ours. And over time, that kind of mindset doesn't just block connection, it blocks growth. Because real wisdom doesn't come from proving you're right. It comes from being open enough to realize you might be wrong. The woman who constantly talks may get attention, but the woman who listens, she earns respect, she builds trust. She understands people on a deeper level because she actually makes space for their voice to be heard. I once had a mentor who barely spoke in meetings, but when he did, everyone leaned in because his words always carried weight. Why? Because he listened first. He asked good questions. He paused. And when he finally said something, it wasn't to impress, it was to serve. That's the kind of presence I've come to admire most. Quiet strength, intentional speech, a calm, grounded energy that doesn't need to dominate the room to lead it. Listening is more than politeness. It's presence. It's humility. It's saying, your experience matters. Your story is worth hearing. And it's not just about listening to others. It's also about listening to yourself. Not the loud voice of insecurity or fear, but that quieter, wiser inner voice that only speaks when we get still enough to hear it. So ask yourself, when was the last time you really listened? Not just nodded along, not just waited for your turn to speak, but listened with your whole heart. Because in a world that rewards noise and speed, deep listening is a radical act. It slows you down, it wakes you up, and it transforms your relationships, starting with the one you have with yourself. So the next time you feel the urge to speak, pause. Ask yourself, is this coming from value or a need to be validated? And remember, sometimes the most powerful thing you can say is nothing at all. So there you have it, 7 signs of a foolish woman. But before you judge, pause, because this isn't about shame. It's not about labeling or calling anyone out. It's about awareness. It's a mirror, not a verdict. These signs aren't meant to tear you down. They're here to wake something up in you, to nudge you toward truth, to invite you to take one step closer to the woman you were always meant to be. Change doesn't begin with perfection. It begins with honesty, with the quiet courage to look at your life and say, this isn't serving me anymore. That's where transformation starts, not in fixing everything overnight, but in becoming aware of what needs to shift. And that shift? It doesn't have to be loud. It can be as simple as a question. Who am I becoming? Or what would my wiser self choose right now? Maybe as you listen today, one of these signs hit home. Maybe more than one. That's okay. You're human, you're growing, and wisdom isn't a finish line. It's a daily decision. A choice to rise when it's easier to run. A choice to reflect instead of react. A choice to choose depth over performance, truth over image, and growth over comfort. So if you're here, still listening, still thinking, still questioning, that alone means you're on the path. And that's something to be proud of. Because the woman who dares to choose wisdom, even when it's hard, even when no one's watching, she's already stronger than she knows. And over time, quietly but surely, she becomes powerful in the truest sense of the word. Now ask yourself, which of these signs spoke to me the most? And what's one small step I can take today to move forward? Because your next chapter doesn't require you to be perfect. It only asks that you begin.